Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, joined in the Grandma's Couch studio by these two esteemed gentlemen.
Are you sure?
Our shirts have our name for the viewers.
Thank you.
But for
Yeah,
listeners,
look at you. Look at the twins. They
That-
dressed alike
right.
today. They
So-
dressed alike.
for our listeners, though, I am Jeff.
I have a cooler hat though.
I don't know. Jeffrey looks like he could do some serious business. He's got the black driver's cap on with the black hoodie.
But he's not
I
the,
love.
the mad scientist in black.
You know what's funny? I actually have the exact same hoodie that I brought in with me today
should've
as
wore it.
my backup hoodie.
You should have wore it.
I am actually wearing a gift from Iron Rock Off-Road.
What was that?
Well, it's a good thing they're not sponsoring the podcast.
They're not sponsoring the podcast. I just botched over that one. It's a really sick little Carhartt that's embroidered. Says Iron Rock Off Road. Got a nice logo piece on the back plate. Yeah, pretty sick little hoodie they sent me. So that's what I'm wearing. But I brought my matching hoodie. We could all have been twinsies.
Yeah.
Twinning.
You missed an opportunity.
I did miss an opportunity, but you two look fly.
It happens.
You look fly. And were you working with PB Blaster this morning, Scott?
No. I was
Oh.
putting brake fluid in things.
Oh, maybe it's the brake fluid I
brake
smell.
fluid.
Yeah, definitely. The aromatic.
The fun of putting brake fluid in a vehicle that's not had brake fluid in it yet and finding all the weepy spots.
Initial dry starts. You know what I
Yes.
mean, as far as filling systems and whatnot.
Yep.
Got to snug everything up. Jeffrey, I just want to check in for our viewers at home that we are actually live. Is that correct?
We are live.
Because usually we
We
have
have
people
like
jumping
15
in to go in
people.
I know.
for first,
where is
yelling
everybody?
first. Apparently, everybody is
Where's the love, man?
saving up for us today. I don't know.
I don't know. Hey, Savage, you're over there. Can you verify we're live?
I think
He's giving us a thumbs
he
up.
gave us a thumbs up. It's
I
just
blame-
nobody wants to talk
I
to us.
blame
no
today.
Jeff.
comments today.
That's
It's totally
fine.
Jeff's fault.
It's-
I mean, I figured we were live because the Facebook feed is here, and it doesn't let me access that if we're not live. But
Yeah.
there's just no comments coming in.
Okay. All right.
It's
well,
quiet.
There
it is.
Hey,
Joseph's my
in.
teeth itch.
Yeah.
Wow. Weird.
Oh, and then my wife chimed in live with laughing
Well,
face. So
Perfect. Okay. So we do know we are
Thank
at
you
least
for helping our
broadcasting out
complex.
into the world. Yes.
Keith is
Wow.
saying morning.
We're just not that fun.
Yeah,
is
Apparently
what,
not.
what I understand.
Everyone's
at
like,
this
yeah, we
point.
don't want to talk to these guys today.
Good morning, Keith.
They were
Yeah.
actually having a meeting. And we were just
They were
Oh.
actually not just pretend meetings.
Oh.
Well, actually, maybe they just didn't
Court,
like your
court's actually in session, and they have to pay attention this
court
time.
is actually in session. Oh, and maybe they just didn't like your title. What is the title of today's program?
Lost in the parks.
Lost in the Parks, where we will be talking about the off-road parks, the advantage to wheeling in established properties and spaces versus what I'll call gray or black wheeling. And we'll kind of get into that as we talk further.
Joe said, "I'm just saying what's on my mind." We know, Joe. we
Love
would
it, Joe.
expect nothing less from you.
I'm glad you're saying what's on your mind versus what's on your legs and the bottom half of you right now, Joe.
Oh, jeez.
So,
Wow.
did you introduce yourself? I
did. Scott
lofted.
did.
I lofted.
I did.
Joe
Indirectly.
statement there.
Yeah, indirectly you were introduced. You did not.
So is the mad scientist in black.
There you go.
All right.
Whatever. I don't know.
Close enough.
The
Whatever.
mysterious mad scientist.
This is nothing mysterious about. You're quirky. I mean, that's the truth. But mysterious goodness. So we are obviously going to be talking about our off-roading adventures as far as parks and activities. An event just passed this weekend. That is a very cool one that I like to support, and one that is just come up off the ground recently as an event that is showcasing a good swath of West Virginia. So we're going to be talking about the pros and cons and different aspects of where you can take your 4x4 vehicle.
Yep.
Before we get into that, per se, was there anything of substance that we should update? Of course, my updates for the house build are on Patreon at this point for those close supporters.
Well, and you were kind of traveling all over, weren't you, this weekend?
I was urban wheeling, if you will, through the great city of Pittsburgh, and I was kind of all over the place. Kind of almost didn't shut the vehicles off this weekend. So
That's always a challenge.
yeah, definitely. So, but we had a spectacular time, lots of family time, and lots of different sights and scenes to be exposed in, and then did find time to prioritize working on the house. If this is one of your first times listening, my wife and I are
Building
converting
a small storage unit.
Yeah, building a small storage unit as far as the local authorities are concerned, and super cool.
Is the bare spot that's in the siding, is that for like a porch?
It is not, sir.
Okay.
So there is
For when it may or may not be a storage unit.
So factually, that is a ledger board for future opportunity.
Okay.
And I'm just building that into the exterior.
You just didn't have enough things to cut siding around. You're like, listen, I'm going to do more.
That's
Let's
it.
cut the
That's
cut around.
factually correct. And then
I feel like it probably benefited you on those really long strips, though.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, realistically, it was a lot of mathing, which was actually very fun for me.
Did you cut it off at exactly like the 12-foot mark, or did you?
What do you mean cut what off?
Where the length of that exterior wall build out will be? Because you ended up doing a J channel, vertical J channel to cap it.
Correct.
So, what is your length in that section? Is it a 12-foot length? Is it a
No, it's like one of them is 32, 36 feet, and the other one's like 26 feet.
It's like, this is Neil. It's going to be some oddball.
So it doesn't actually help you with your cuts.
fractional number.
There was no help with my cuts. No. I was going bigger is better, buddy.
That's the Simpson way. Even when you're doing a small house.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the problem. And my beautiful wife made sure to come out. She's very helpful most times. This weekend, it was solidly come out for the pictures. That was her contribution. She came out.
Hey, that's important.
Told me that I was cobbing up the peak, the siding where you get into this point.
As she should.
Yeah, you get into this point where you throw math out the window because now you've got you're in the J channel, you're into compound angles, and you're into
unless
the
you're
peak.
Greg.
You're
Greg would have mathed all that in his head and be like, "Yeah, you just need to do this, and that."
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you're like, "What?"
Yeah,
You're just inspirational sighting at that point.
I was just inspirational siding. I'm up there with a set of shears, and we're getting close enough to horseshoes and hand grenades. And of course, my wife's down on the ground going, "That's not right." And I was like, "No, it's fine."
She was right.
She was right.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I've been there.
Yeah,
Literally done the same
Yeah,
exact thing.
I just had to eat crow and be like, yeah, okay, you were right. So, anyways, yeah, it's great. I encourage our Patreons go on. Made you a video, explain a little more of that ledger board you're talking about. I kind of had an epiphany on how I'm going to cap it because right now you just see bare wood. And I'm pretty certain that I have a good way to trim that out, final trim on that, and kind of put.
You're gonna do like a vinyl molding.
No. You know what? I desperately looked for vinyl molding. I cannot find a 2x8 vinyl molding. If somebody out there knows that, I would love to use that. But I think I'm just going to use white aluminum and break it myself. You know, I'm gonna channel the mad scientist. But I'm going to go ahead and break over the white.
That's where that really odd measurement might really bite you, but that's fine.
No, I mean, honestly, it's just a 2x8, and it's 36 feet long on one side and 12 on the other, and it's just under 12, and then 26 on the other side, and I'll cap all of that. And
so if you have a 36-inch break, Neil needs to.
You know what? Back in the day,
36 foot, not 36 inch.
Yeah, you and your. Back in the day, I just used. I mean, with aluminum.
You sit over there with your 4 foot, 36-inch brake.
Hush you.
You know what? There's a will, there's a way. And back in the day when I was working with aluminum, I was just using like 2x4s and made a brake out of 2x4s.
Absolutely.
And you can get enough of that bend as necessary for what we're doing. And I'm just going to put that to bed. I literally just put the ledger board on 3 places. so that eventually we can, with with Big Papa government's discretion, we can put the addition on eventually. But as of right now, this unit is being done in stages to appropriately play within the guidelines of what the unit originally started as. So, but yeah, some really attractive pictures, and the siding looks really good. And for those of you who gave me pointers and tips, because understand I had absolutely no concept. My wife and I have not built a house before.
Storage unit.
Standard, yeah, oversized storage unit. We've not done that. We've done, lots of your household projects. We did some other crazy stuff as far as homeowner type builds back in the day. But, this is, arguably an authentic stick by stick, sheet by sheet build.
Yep.
Which is, interesting to say the least. So, and yourselves, anything of value?
So I'm still mourning the four-wheel driveness of the back of the 36 at the moment. How I have this huge gappage. I remember back in the day when we were younger, you would stuff your shoe in the wheel well, and if it fell out, then you were not cool.
Okay.
I could stuff like 14 shoes in there right now, so I'm really devastated.
Why? Why do you have so much spring rate or wheel well opening or too small a tire?
This is the classic thing. Like, my wife has already pointed out probably why it is, but I'm kind of ignoring that and still in full panic mode.
Perfect.
Because she brought up sensible things like the gas tank's empty, there's no glass in it or interior.
Okay.
Which
are all valid.
All valid, true statements. But the front sits like I want it to, with mostly not of that stuff. So either that's going to really go down.
Wow. You're going to, or you can't have the cake and eat it too in this conversation.
Well, the front, do you have the engine mounted in it?
The engine is in it.
Yeah.
And it has oil in it, but no coolant.
It still has a good amount of the weight in the front.
It does.
And no weight in the back, so it's literally pulling.
It's like you're in my head, Jeffrey. So I brought over my other early Ford friend to look at my tail pan and see if he thought it was satisfactory, and also to mourn the four-wheel driveness of the car. And he was also perturbed by it, which made me have more fuel for my fire, and started talking about maybe shackle length we could make a little longer, which would lower the car. I have been on the fence for a while about changing something on the back of the car, even went as far as got some other parts to do that. And I, in a weak moment, pulled the trigger and changed something. You'll have to wait and see when they arrive.
Because why we can't have nice things.
This is how you've been working on a car too long, is when you've bought multiples of something and had to sell off other things.
Yep.
Because your brain changes decisions.
Yeah, change direction mid build because time happens.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's just size of stuff is going to be slightly different. But any which way, going to change that around and see if that will help a little bit. And probably we'll be adding some shacklage to lower it another inch, which will be supposedly the spring lowers it 2.5 inches. If we do shackles, it'll lower another inch, so it'll be 3.5 inches. In the front, we have a 2-inch spring that lowers it, and then about a 2-inch axle that lowers it. So we're about 4 inches lower in the nose from stock, and then tires obviously factor into that. So probably still okay if we end up being 3.5 inches lower in the back, because we're still 1/2 inch lower in the front, because I want that hot rod going down.
You want that little hot rod rake to
which will be also rubber involvement. Hint, hint.
You bought more tires.
Yep.
You suck.
Yep. He bought bigger tires.
Yes. I looked at it and I said, what would Neil do? He'd put bigger tires on it.
100%.
Heck yeah.
Without question.
Fill
that wheel well right up.
Yep.
I'm with you.
I agree.
Well, only because the limo's been put away for the winter, as what has kind of like curved my desire for 20s and rubber bands.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the other part of this is I have been looking at every 36 traditional hot rod that's on the internet and that has an idea of what tire size there is. And I quickly found out I went too small with the back tires.
Oh.
If you really want to look really, really fly, you do a 750 16 in the rear.
Mm-hmm.
I have 650s, and you wouldn't think that'd make a big difference.
It
but
does.
it
No,
does make a huge
when
difference.
you get to that number equation,
Yes.
those are actually leaps and bounds.
So I went with 700s. So I wasn't doing the full Monty of like the tires are stuffed in the rear fenders. But I went up, that 50% more. So we'll see what it looks like. It's supposed to be 30 tall, so we'll see.
Very cool.
It also will help the 378 gear ratio with a straight 3-speed. So maybe you'll like going a little
Now you
faster.
sound like one of our fine big truck drivers at this
Yeah.
point. Right
Well-
now, there's an argument with old school truck drivers about the big size of tires versus
Yes.
the smaller size and your overdrive ratio.
Well, that's because semis in my car are pretty similar with axle design and kingpins and all that kind of
There's
stuff.
actually a little bit of truth there.
It is.
There's a little bit of technical truth there. So
So
I can appreciate that. And Jeffrey, you obviously are continuing to march quickly downhill to your large scale event happening in just a few months.
Yes, a lot of additional marketing materials were produced over the weekend. The trophies and awards have been officially ordered. Those are being made as we speak. I've got a lot of business meetings set up. Donations and stuff are starting to roll in. I got to go back to Erie on Wednesday to start collecting some of those things and meet with some of these business opportunities that I have to meet with. A lot of media opportunity coming forward as well. So just working through all that process. The other news in our life that's probably, in my opinion, a little more important than the nonprofit is today is Xander's plastic surgery appointment for the eye doctor. So we're going to hopefully get some more answers and see where that journey is taking us. So we're going literally as soon as the podcast ends, I'm taking off to go get Xander and the rest of my family and drive out to the Cole Institute in Cleveland and meet with
fantastic eye optometry institute there.
Yeah, and so we're going to meet with the ocular plastic surgeon
Yes.
to discuss options and needs for Xander going forward.
Yep, and we wish you the best of luck in that. I mean, it would be great to see what the Cole Institute has for you guys, because it is a fantastic. We know that you're in good hands in this hard and challenging process, and this is the best outcome that it could have at this point. So, we wish you best of luck and safe travels, obviously, in that process. As we move into the show, want to make sure we say good morning to Roy and Amy and Austin for jumping on and making us feel less alone.
And we appreciate that Joe's wearing his pants today.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's fantastic. And for all three of our listeners at home, we appreciate you as well. Understand you can join us live at 10:19 almost every Monday. And on the Book of Faces. So you can jump onto our live. You can set up for a notification, I believe.
I think we should make a new game. If we're not actually live at 10:19, our listeners need to jump in the comments and guess who is the reason we're not live.
Oh, jeez.
Jeff is.
Jeff.
No,
It's
Jeff
always
is.
Jeff's fault.
It's always Jeff. Jeff, you're the producer. You're literally the person
I'm just
who
gonna-
hits the button to go live.
so
That's
then I'm
Jeff's
just
fault.
going to start making it go live,
Well, that's-
whether you're on air or
you've
not.
been saying that for a couple of years now, and
Idle threats.
idle threats. That's
But
exactly
Scott's
empty.
always sitting in this spot 98% of the time. So just saying.
It's the Savage's fault. Davey the Savage.
There it is.
His fault. Easy peasy. We're solved.
He's just ignoring us like
It's
normal.
solved at this point. Oh, that is fantastic.
Next week, I'm going to make it live exactly at 10:19, and we'll just see who's running to the
So
to the
you heard
set.
it here, guys. When
So-
it's not live at 10:19,
I'll take blame next
you
week.
bring the heat.
Right. Oh, it's totally Jeff's fault. So, folks, if you're listening at home right now, understand that next week, the 12th, shortly thereafter that, specifically men, or if you play the male role within your relationship, Valentine's Day is just under 1 week away.
This
And
is your final warning.
This is your warning.
And I think next Monday we will do something for Valentine's Day on air.
And remember,
Okay.
guys, she really likes car parts. Just make sure you get her.
Or if she
car
doesn't
parts.
like car parts, she likes diamonds. So, Scott, I don't think you should give relationship advice. I feel, oh my God! Next week we're going to be giving our best relationship advice, and we're going to compare. We're going to compare our relationship advice. Oh gosh!
Wow.
Well, folks, we know what Amy's getting for Valentine's Day. Really really attractive gas pedal and a new set of
maybe,
tires.
Maybe the woman in your life is very into that kind of stuff. That's appropriate.
Yep.
That's not the bell curve, Scott. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. What I was also getting at is that I believe it is February 19th is President's Day, which if you have the opportunity to schedule yourself off with some time, then make sure that you join us live here so that you can join us and have fun and engage in the program accordingly.
Well, and additionally, I think next week we're tentatively going to have a guest on air for the American Hustle podcast.
Is that next week?
That's next week.
See the
Wow.
sweat forming.
Well, I'll have to follow up on that. All that means.
Tentatively. It was tentatively for next week.
That's right. Because then I believe that I will actually not be available at the end of the month, the 26th.
Yep.
So whether or not we have something pre-recorded or you guys choose to soldier on in the process
I see the
is
fear
yet
in
to
Jeff's eyes.
is yet to be determined. I'm done. Jeff looking at me.
So much nope.
Well, then I think we
Neil,
solved it there. So.
Neil is a security blanket.
That's right. That's right. And Amy chimes in, says that the doc,
I know. We'll put Davey on air in place of Neil.
Oh,
mad
God.
scientist, Doc Brown's relationship is solid. She's happy with car parts for Valentine's Day, apparently. And
she added in more.
and Joe Harper jumps in, and his lady's driving a Bronco now,
I'm sorry.
and she's been eyeing a slant back. That would look sexy on a Bronco. The tops on Broncos as a whole are a continued challenge, and so
Warning.
warning. If your top doesn't leak like a sieve right now,
Leave it alone.
don't fix what's not broken. In my opinion.
We might have some insider knowledge.
Yeah,
on
if
there.
yours isn't leaking, you are unique.
Yeah, I was gonna say good.
Yeah.
Don't
hold
touch
on
it.
to that. Yeah, don't touch it. Anywho, so there's your upcoming episodes, and we encourage you to always join us. We should.
I will absolutely step off air to have a guest host like Joan Rivers or Rich Little.
I love your suggestions, Joe.
Joe,
Thanks for
why don't
sharing
you
that
go
in the
ahead and
comments.
arrange that for us, and we will be happy to put them on air.
Don't do that. 'cause
Oh.
Joe will do it.
That's fantastic.
It would be really funny.
That would be. That would be. For those of you who are listening who actually want us to talk about Jeep stuff, we are going to be sharing today the concept of why should you be going to an off-road park,
Yes.
right? And maybe some of the ups and downs of that. And I'm going to speak. I think we're a good, unique mix of individuals. We've shared some of these stories online or live
Well,
previously on
and I
this
think
program.
we can say that all three of us wheel very differently than each other, too.
Jeff just ramrods through and gets stuck when he doesn't give it too much go pedal.
Okay, maybe Neil and I are more similar than I want to
gonna
admit.
say, Jeff, I don't know that we're all that different, buddy.
Jeff's like, that's fair.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where you want to go with this, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Okay.
So versus Scott, we're very unique.
Yeah. Well, and additionally, I think what we're going to be painting the picture for our listeners is the concept of what I call black wheeling is straight up illegal wheeling. Okay.
Gray wheeling, I've also heard it.
Well,
called.
so gray wheeling is
questionable.
Is gray. It's questionable, right? And so for me, gray wheeling is the concept of some of our logging properties that are owned by entities. It could be logging properties or oil gas
So
fracking
basically,
properties.
we have a
or,
qualifier. Black wheeling means the owner's going to show up with a shotgun any minute.
yeah,
Gray means you're not going to get in trouble today,
right.
but you might get something in the mail.
Or the railroad owns property, and well, the challenge
You
is
may
with
get a
gray
slap on the
wheeling-
wrist with gray wheeling.
Yeah, and the challenge with gray wheeling is that you have these entities who are large landowners who don't exactly care that you're on their land.
They kind of care. They kind of don't care.
Their legal department cares,
Yes.
but as a business model, they're not going to employ security, create restrictions, or and they're
Unless
going to employ
shingles or other furniture show up on the trail somehow.
trails
Then-
and burn,
then they
burning
might-
boats and tires,
Yeah.
and you're causing chaos for the local
that
neighborhood.
might get you more attention.
And so we're going to kind of unpack, because what we actually thought was unique to our approach is the fact that ultimately we're headquartered outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
And so in this Midwestern Great Lakes region, we have our local, local off-road trails, which, you just kind of bump along for 5-10 minutes in a rutted, little trail that a side-by-side is usually on. Then you have a handful of parks that are open on specific days or occasions.
Yep.
And then we have to travel 2 to 6 hours to get
Easily.
a prescribed park that is open with more frequency.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have listeners from out west, from down south, globally, who have
just have to go to a national park.
they have the ability to just kind of get in their Jeep or truck or off-road vehicle and just go 20 minutes, down the lane, and they're there,
Yeah.
right? So,
Somebody's gonna totally call us on that, but that's fine.
well, I mean, no, because there's some authenticity there,
Yeah.
because we have the density of land population, the per capita population east of the Mississippi is factually different than the per capita land density west of the Mississippi.
And I would say it even, was developed slightly different because we're over by the original colony side. It was more developed, and you kind of had towns and structure and that kind of stuff. Where out west, it was kind of like, it's way out in God's country. You can kind of do whatever you want to do for a lot longer. Where we had kind of guidelines
I
way
think
earlier.
I think there is some reality that we have these pockets of dense urban population, which then creates regulation,
Yes.
right? Whereas we move westward and into more remote areas where there is less need for regulation
Yeah.
initially,
Yep.
because there's just simply less people doing things.
And
right?
they had just such much more property that they were able to do national parks and kind of set aside acres and acres and acres of land.
And how do we continue to embrace that acreage
Yes.
and maintain it, right? Because in our area alone, we've seen trail after trail, local access trails become developed, become restricted, and otherwise just off limits to what we used to do. And many of us did it respectfully.
Yes.
But the reality of the situation is one bad apple rotted the bunch.
Correct.
Right?
Just real quick in the comments, we got Brian Ritchie saying, "Good morning. Sorry for jumping in late," and I think we should forgive him this time.
This time.
Just because Jeff said
This
so.
time, Brian. Next time, I'm looking at you, buddy. I see you. So next time, you won't get off so easily. And Joe Harper says we should interview the winner of the 24 Hours of Appalachia run. And I think that would be really cool. I did not get to see who it was, and I hope that maybe Rob Morgan could jump in and
I saw
share
he
with us.
completed, and
I
the,
saw
and
he
the Dub J
completed.
was still in one piece and still had a roof.
Yeah, super cool paint job
was
that he
proud of
did
him.
himself.
Yeah, I was too.
And I would love to know how that went.
And I feel for him too because he immediately came out with this very unique paint scheme, and all these other people were like, "Oh, it's like blah blah blahs," and like this one's over here, and he's like, "I had it planned out way before they did." I feel you in my soul
I did not see
because that's Scott in all automotive.
all
adventures.
things, Scott. You were 10 years ahead of your time, but by the time you actually got
it out of the garage,
Yep.
there's 15 of them out
Yeah,
there.
I feel that. I know that, man. That's your clause in life.
Yes.
But let's get back to the land use and land management across the swath of the United States. And we even talk about this when it comes to the actual application of the services we offer here. We talk about gearing vehicles. And honestly, I would have conversations with our national reps. And I remember a national rep saying to me, 10, 15 years ago, going, "Oh, you guys just gear your Jeeps too conservatively. You don't gear them deep enough, low, numerically
we're like,
high,
"Listen,
low range.
We got
low
to
gear."
drive 8 hours to get where we're going.
And that was an epiphany to him because he
Yeah.
was, based over on the West Coast. And
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, I didn't think about the fact that You can't just pull off the side of the road
Yeah.
and
Be out in the desert.
be out in the desert or the
Yep.
hills or wherever. And so we typically numerically gear our vehicles basically one numeric ratio lower than what was being geared out west. It was always an interesting talking point when I consulted with our customers to say, well, I'm on a forum and these folks said you have to run 538s. And I'm like, well, you know, that the difference between 538s and 513s or 513 and 488 is, you know, 500 RPM. And so if you got to drive at 600, 6 hours at a sustained 500 RPM increase, that's simply MPG at that point, And so these talking points are reoccurring. We've seen our local private land become restricted from our use here. We've seen urban sprawl develop properties that we once were able to access. I've wheeled in Western Pennsylvania properties, Eastern Ohio, Southern Ohio, that are no longer there because there's houses built on them or businesses or small.
Or even as far as like we have right on the Great Lakes, so we have erosion, we have weathering, that kind of stuff. I've seen just in our short tenure of trails that you used to be able to drive down and now you can't.
Yeah.
And that was 10, 12 years ago that I made that assumption that you shouldn't drive on that anymore, and I'm sure it's far worse now.
Yeah, there's a trail that literally just dead ends into the lake. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them, and as you move over into Western PA, there's a handful that just right off.
Didn't used to. So if you went wheeling 25 years ago and you're like, I'm going to go today, you might be swimming.
Yeah. So as we've, and of course, through that process, we've seen greater regulation of this private property, the private land, where people have become very possessive of it, right? Yeah. And so, of course, we want to be respectful. Correct. We want to be respectful. So the black is just straight up, this is illegal. You shouldn't be out there. In my experience, gray is like, well, it's timberland, and they timbered it 6 years ago. They do technically have guys who are supposed to, who have, they're supposed to come out and check on the property, make sure there's no squatters. Of course, the challenge you run into there is maybe they've leased it for hunting rights.
Yes.
And, you have to be very conscientious of the fact that you might be infringing on somebody's curated hunting grounds that they've paid a lot of money for. That's a big one.
They get really angry when you
They
accidentally stumble upon them,
which I've absolutely done. There's a great social media fire within the last decade or so because I was caught on a trail cam and I had to go, snuff that out to be like, hey, I really just like riding around in 4-wheel drive. Like, I promise I'm not doing anything.
It's actually really boring.
I was just, I'm really not that cool. I was just riding around in 4-wheel drive, and they were cool about it, but they were very unhappy that I was on land. I had veered off a trail that I did have permission to be on, but I legitimately...
And that is another big challenge when you're out in those gray areas is you can think you're completely in the good, that you have permission.
Yep.
There is a lot of landowners that because they can't take their ATV somewhere or their side-by-side somewhere, they make their own off-road park in their backyard. We know a couple people have done that. But then you accidentally stumble across that imaginary line and you're now on their neighbor's property and they may not be so friendly.
That is 100% true. And it was actually one of the really neat things about my property that I owned in Western Pennsylvania, that it actually abutted about 100 acres total with ATV and mountain bike and hiking trails that you could access, which was super cool. I never got to really utilize it as an ATVer, but some, I did do it some, and the hiking and the biking and the walking the dogs and all that kind of stuff, it was awesome. But there was specifically a parcel that was a no-go land, right? You ended up in people's backyards, basically, you know? And you have to be very, very careful.
And it's very easy to get turned around when you're out in the woods.
Sure.
Even if you're at a sanctioned off-road park, the trails, they'll have markers telling you not to go certain directions because that leaves their property.
Yes. Your words touch me, Jeffrey.
Because I know you love to explore those areas.
You know what? Maybe there's the root of the problem. There's a common denominator here in the conversation.
Scott just gets lost. We can all attest to that.
Yes.
So I do it innocently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil is adventuring and
Neil's like,
exploring.
What's blocked off over there?
Why
Let's go
is that
check
blocked out? Maybe I can stick my friend's Jeep on this big pile of dirt that shouldn't be here.
I really have nothing. You remember when my wife was yelling at me about the
Yeah.
peak on the roof? And I was like, no, it's not. And then no, she was right. Yeah, so you
Yeah,
guys
it's
are
fair.
right.
It's fair.
Fair. These are fair words you're sharing. So what is the option for people like me who are not good at following rules or taking blatant signs of you shouldn't be doing this?
Are you the guy that turns the arrow the other direction on the trail? So
I'm
They
not.
get really angry when you do that.
I
just
am
so you know.
tremendously respectful of
And
other people's property.
I really think that that's something that's important. If you are going to go out on these trails that are marked, it is appropriate to respect those markers and not
Yes.
turn them around.
Not-
I have
not
seen where people
intentionally.
have intentionally manipulated those signs, and
Yes.
that's not okay.
It's not
Yes.
helping your cause.
No, not at all. But what we have available to us as a growing population of outdoor enthusiasts is established off-road parks.
Which we are very blessed to have a few close-ish to us that we can go explore.
And realistically, in the grand scheme of the nation, you have public lands, which is part of the Bureau of Land Management, and we thank so many individuals come before us to set that land aside, right? Because of course we've seen what has happened east of the Mississippi as land
Right.
gets used for urban sprawl and development, right? So we have these lands that are set aside for public access. Now, there's a whole conversation about how we access those lands, and we'll get to that just a smidgy bit,
Yeah.
right? And then we have our established private off-road parks,
Mm-hmm.
which we've seen a huge insurgence with, retired rock quarries,
Mhm.
mining operations, spaces that were once large swaths of land that were previously utilized for a different resource and now are being offered to us as off-road individuals for ammunitions training, for off-roading, for hunting leases, for all types of outdoor pursuits.
Which is
Pretty
why
cool opportunity.
those are only open certain times.
Which is why they're typically only open certain times. Now we've seen some states. So of course your national parks have some protected land access, right?
Mhm.
And so most of your national parks have provisions for respectful camping
Mhm.
and light trail use.
Yep.
Meaning, if there's access roads cut through there,
Yeah.
you can
You can Scott wheel there.
you can Scott wheel them, right? Scott's pretty much like going for a ride with your grandpa. It's
Yeah.
really important to know
Real
that,
tame.
right? That's why it bores just the bejeebers out of Savage to go wheeling with Scott.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
no doubt. So you have these different options, and what has recently happened. So we have the big swaths of land, the outdoor, the west of the Mississippi. We have the privatized properties, and then you have kind of these localized, federal and then state level trail systems that have been maintained for a commerce development and bringing people in to use outdoor spaces. Recently, we've seen a bridge in those happening where you actually see local municipalities getting interested in preserving land because they see value for their community, both in personal development of their community individuals, but also the commerce that it brings in.
Mhm.
We've seen the success of large-scale organizations like the Friends of Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival, who have purchased their own property
Mhm.
and as an economic increase hosted a large national, international show to bolster the local environment.
Yeah.
And it couples with off-roading, right?
Yeah.
And Anthracite Off-Road Park, which is, about 6 hours from us, that is actually a county endeavor where they took a, mountaintop mining area and, reasonably converted it to public access for ATVs and full size vehicles. So it's really interesting to look at how we as a nation and as a people utilize our lands. All right, the value of wheeling at a prescribed off-road park is what?
Well, you have a bathroom most of the time.
This is what he comes with.
I was not prepared
I
for that to
wasn't
be
ready.
his answer.
I wasn't ready that
should have been.
Scott's first option was bathroom facilities.
Well, now you know what's on his priority list.
I don't know why this is a big surprise for him.
That is a big surprise to me. I
wasn't ready.
Nope. Nope.
And then
You are-
guess what my next qualifier
I can't
is?
wait.
Oh my
I
God,
can't wait.
I can't wait.
If that's your
Snacks.
leading one,
Snacks?
Yes, food. They usually have some sort of food or some sort of picnic area.
you can't just take food with you and eat it out of your
You
vehicle.
can, but there's more community with if you have some sort of tables.
There's
and
more
such.
community if you have a bathroom that you can share.
Definitely.
I'm done. I had no idea that your top 2 reason for wheeling at a pre.
Guess what, Scott? You could go to any rest stop and get most
I
of
was
that.
going to say, truck stops and rest stops are apparently high on your list of activities. I mean, I love a good truck stop. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not like, hey, guys,
No, I think
I'm planning to check out the rest stop on I-70.
I don't know. why
I'm
this is a big
planning this
surprise.
pit stop along the way just so I can go to this rest stop.
Literally every time we go to our, the off-road park we normally use, we all gather, we go check in. I look at what's for the food offerage, and then we go to the bathroom. The next stop.
So I'm going to tell you, as
Tell me I'm wrong.
many times that I've been to different off-road places, I've never looked at the menu until it was lunchtime, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'll get something off of here versus what I brought. The bathroom, sure, we have a way of traveling, so the bathroom is helpful, but we're guys. It's not really required that there's a physical bathroom.
Speak for yourself, Jeffrey.
Okay, some other time we should talk about how we prepare to go wheeling because
Amy answered this best. Remember, this is a top-on wheeler. He likes his creature comforts.
yep,
Well
that
said,
is
honey.
that's Scott's wife there.
In a
telling me
nutshell.
that he's a top-on wheeler constantly. I was gonna say, if we were to get to unpack how we go wheeling, which I think would also be a fun topic. I love to pack my own lunches and snacks and foods. I never am really that worried about.
Correct. And I'll be honest, even when my wife does go, which she doesn't like to go that much, but even if she does, we have a portable potty that we can take so that we don't have to have a bathroom on the facility.
We always have an emergency potty.
Okay.
See?
Okay. Wow. Do you know what? We went from like really good like conversations about like land management and the rights of off-road wheelers to who's got a potty, guys?
But that's what I'm saying. You don't have that shouldn't be your number one.
So here's probably
Hey, I'm
one
not going to tell
closer-
him what his number one should or shouldn't be.
closer
That's
to Neil's
that's fair.
heart. If you get stuck, there's someone that will help you get unstuck.
There we go.
Hey,
There we're talking.
hey. So I like and I think one of the things that in our off-road parks, first and foremost, there is a direct relationship. For me, there's a direct relationship of that there's a provider
Mhm.
and then myself as somebody there who's to be there recreationally, right? I have explicit permission
Yep.
and an expectation as a person who wheeled for many years in gray situations.
Yes.
It was always kind of like, what are you doing out there? I'm off-roading. I love the fact that I can just go out there and relax and indulge in an environment
Yep.
that is appropriate to my recreation.
Yep.
I
And
don't
not have
to worry
about that guy coming up and stopping you.
I mean, Scott and I have been in some
Or
situations.
coming back to your truck and it's on fire. That was a thing for a while.
That
in
was
some
a
gray
thing.
areas.
There were some
Yep.
gray areas
Yeah,
where they
so
would
if you
vandalize your
know,
vehicle.
You know,
Yep, they would vandalize your vehicle.
it
that
would
was
be
a
missing.
Yep.
totes. Scott and I wheeled in some areas where you had to go lights off. It was your lights off wheeling so people didn't see you at night or you didn't call extra attention to yourself. You didn't want to wheel with anybody who had too loud of an exhaust.
Yep.
You do these things and there is some entertainment in that of itself. But the reality is if I want to go out for a few hours and just, especially at this point in my life where time is so very precious.
Yeah.
I am
and
engaged in so
myself,
much.
I like to go out to relax. Now, some people are looking for the adrenaline, which I don't know what that is, but just also
do.
why I think it's why what's important to me, because I want to go out and relax, be out in nature, know I can go to the bathroom when I want to, have food when I want to, that kind of thing, and not have my vehicle stolen, burned, or rolled off a cliff.
And be able to get out and walk the trails a little bit, knowing
Yes.
that your vehicle is safe.
Yes,
Sure,
and somewhere I can take my children and feel confident that we're safe, allowed, have permission, that kind of stuff, to be where we're at. We kind of know what's going on.
And I think that also you're in a community experience there.
Everybody wants to
Where
help you.
The people want to be helpful,
Yes.
right? And so people are out there for like-minded experience. And what I love about off-road events and off-road parks is we come from so many sorted backgrounds, such a varied, diverse group of people showing up there, kind of united under this guise that we like to, drive these vehicles in
Yes.
four-wheel drive.
Well, and it's if you're out on the park and you see a Bronco that's stuck, or a Toyota that's
Well,
stuck,
first we snicker, we take pictures, and we
we are
snicker.
absolutely going to make fun of you.
Okay.
But then we're going to
take
help
you
you.
out.
Then we're going to help you.
Yeah.
100%.
And if you're, really pushing the envelope, we're going to step back and go, wow, like the guy with the Nissan that one time we were out there, and we're like, first off, they don't have any parts for those available. So that, props.
Yeah.
And holy crap, he's taking a line I've never seen anybody take before.
Yeah.
good
and,
for you.
And I'm going to stare at you because I think you might roll it any minute. But when you don't roll it, I'm going to go, wow.
All right.
You did some stuff there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting because in the motorsports industry in general, this is something we can all kind of get behind as camaraderie. We can
Yes.
respect the build was an idea. But when you're in specifically the competitive pursuits fields, let's equate it to a drag racing park, right?
Yes.
Because you can drag on the local streets. You shouldn't, but you can go to this local drag park and do a sanctioned race. The issue is many of those individuals confuse the competition with themselves to become better with competition with each other, right?
Yeah.
And I understand in the
It
off-road
really
community.
because I've seen both sides of that. Being in the cars myself, I've seen people literally take engines out of other race cars to help another guy win. He's out of
Without
the thing, that kind
question.
of stuff.
But
So there
you're
is
literally
camaraderie,
set up to
but it
to
is
be
a
a competitive racer.
Racer where I've had more than once where somebody's like, "Hey, I'm really green. I'd like to go off road and try it out. Where can I go that's not going to be too extreme, but it can challenge me, and I can have help if needed." And I'll recommend some places, and then they're like, "Well, what happens if I get there and I need a tool?" I said, "Then you go up to someone and you say, 'Hey, hi, my name is blah. I need this tool.'" And they're going to go, "Hi, nice to meet you. Here's the tool that you need."
Right, here's 18 variations. And if I
Yes.
don't have it, I'm
And-
going to flag down
And
one
you're
of these
going to
other
hear
vehicles.
like 4 other heads are going to pop up and go,
tool,
tool, tool,
tool,
tool,
tool,
you need a tool.
tool. I've got air pressure. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Without question.
So, one of my first experiences with my own vehicle at Southington, I actually blew a tire, and I didn't change my own tire.
No,
I went to. Next thing I knew, it was done.
yeah, you
Just-
had a pit crew
it,
show
it-
up.
It was a swarm of Jeepers just done.
Yes,
And I'm like, what just happened?
yes.
yes. That
And-
in a nutshell is one of the big advantages of going to in these parks.
And to appropriately, put Southington Off-Road, because I don't think we'd actually said their name
no,
yet.
No.
Jeff did it.
Jeff did it. Put it out there. They actually have a tremendous support team. They're all volunteers. They've been
Yes.
doing it for decades. And those individuals are there because that is what they love to do, is to
Mhm.
ensure that you have a good time out on the trails. And most of them have
And
no financial gain whatsoever.
Right.
The fun part about that is none of those volunteers were in that pit crew. It's just people there having a good
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
For sure.
Question.
Yeah.
I had it similarly there when I had a truck that wouldn't start, and it was just a very funny interaction. But regardless to all of that, the objective to going to an established park is that insulation, that security, that insurance, both figuratively and literally,
yes,
that you're going to have an experience that is above board as much as possible.
and I'm going to include one more thing. We did mention about driving your Jeep to the trails. If you can't, and you need to truck and trailer in, and you go to an off-road park, your truck and trailer is safe.
Yeah.
You have a designated parking area for that. It's relatively not any different than going to your local store, locking the door, and walking away from it. Where if you go to a gray or black area, your likelihood of that is very low.
Sure.
Tickets may be involved, towing can be involved, that kind of stuff. That just makes the whole thing kind of go bad really fast.
Now, as an industry, we recognize the value of this, and of course, there's a whole social discourse as land becomes slightly more scarce than what it was before, despite the fact that we have these land management processes in place. We just have more people engaged in the sport, the activity more than ever. We have more mobility. People are loading up the trucks and trailers and running cross country. We're running to different parks and areas more so than we were ever doing.
And it starts to
before
become
as
bragging
well.
rights to travel to all those locations.
So it does. And so there's a couple things that have become subsidiaries of this experience just in our lifetime alone, because again, we grew up in a world where largely you could just kind of drive through the farmer's field and bang through the back 40, and that was pretty fun.
I mean, we've never driven through cornfields or anything, right?
I haven't. No, I'm fine, Jeffrey. I don't know about you, criminal. So
Yeah, there was never a young Scott in the passenger seat of a Comanche.
can
Going,
factually
Are
say-
we supposed to be here?
I can
Scott, we were
factually say
fine. We were fine.
I never drove through live cornfields. Does that count?
We were fine, Scott. Yeah,
My
you're fine.
anxiety was off the roof.
Such a Nancy. With no offense to any Nancy's in the
No
audience.
bathrooms there at all.
No, we were fine.
Yeah.
It was a good Comanche. We were stout.
We s-
So the
Oh.
idea is that then there's a couple subsidiaries. There's a couple things that have offshooted from this. We have obviously we have the Tread Lightly campaign, right?
Yes.
Which in the hiking, outdoors, camping world, we have the Leave No Trace.
Mhm.
Tread Lightly is a similar enough experience where objectively we're trying to talk about utilizing public and private lands in a respectful manner that benefits the community as a whole.
Yep.
Jeep and then other private organizations saw value in these experiences. Obviously, I know we have a number of JJUSA listeners that are engaged in our program. Obviously, they're one of them. Jeep, themselves with their Badge of Honors trails, recognizes the value that people want to go explore other grounds, other properties.
Yep.
But maybe are not, as familiar with what's available in upstate Pennsylvania or in southern Alabama or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and there's a number of off-road apps to help you find those trails.
And then that would be the third option. So that's what I was saying. So the three going on is our lobbying, if you will, our regulatory groups that have helped kind of expand this. We then have these pre-described runs as far as JJUSA and the Badges of Honors trails. And then the third is going to be recently are the apps that have benefited individual users.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're going to talk so much about the apps today, but we did want to address that
At least include that exists.
that it exists,
Yeah.
and that there are some options out there for our listeners through that as a kind of a private entity. As far as the pre-described runs with Badge of Honor trails or JJUSA, which does sometimes cross over,
Mm-hmm.
or even just this past weekend with the 24 Hours of Appalachia run, the idea is to raise awareness and to create a feeling for the participants that you have that comfort level, that that the potty breaks are built into the schedule.
Yep.
That there's going to be some on-site leadership or guides, and that this space that you otherwise would not be familiar with,
Yes.
you now can go to some random outdoor space in Wyoming
Yep.
and within reason comfortably wheel.
I think that's one of the coolest parts of that is that's land or trails you would not be able to go on it's specifically like for JJUSA and those kind of things scenarios. Not always, but sometimes. And now you get to experience that where before it would be a lock gate or a no trespass kind of scenario.
Well, and the other benefit to going to these dedicated places is that they have minimum requirements to be on the trails so that you know that your vehicle is fully capable to go down those trails.
Yeah.
So if you are going as a novice, you don't end up on a black trail that you're not going to be able to get out of.
100%.
Which is very much possible at a off-road park where you're just kind of given free reign of the space.
Correct.
Especially
right?
if you get lost.
And so,
Yeah, Scott.
so as far as this past weekend, there was the Starlight Ride at it was a 10 mile for 2 mile, which is part of Oil Valley Jeeps. And this is a particular property that actually once was a very proud off-road space where a lot of local club activities happened as far as sand drags and hill climbs and off-road obstacle courses. And the property, through aspects of trail maintenance and, kind of a heightened responsibility from the event organizers, has been made available to full-size rigs once again after about 20, 30 years of no off-road vehicles being allowed on there, has now been able to be responsibly used 2 times a year, right? And so we have these specialized opportunities where exactly what Jeffrey's saying, they said, hey, if you've got a 4-wheel drive and an all-terrain tire at minimum,
Yes.
basically you're good to come out and try out your vehicle.
Yep.
And I think that that's really valuable to our industry.
Yes.
Because it helps bridge that conversation between gray wheeling and specialized, properties,
Right.
and it creates that prescribed experience where you know that you're safe, you're going to get the tool if the
Yes.
tire gets ripped off the beat again.
And it's a good way to bring someone new into it, teach
bring
them the
someone
right
new in.
way to go about it, the responsible way, the safe way, the potty bake way.
The potty break way, he said.
On that note, how many Badge of Honor trails do you think there are?
Oh,
I know there's quite a few. I know that's one of the things I've seen more getting the newer Jeep. It's talked about a lot more in those groups. Seems like it's almost lost on the older groups. Specifically someone that has I'm in a Willys group to a CJ group to, all the way up through. It seems like it speaks more to the newer, let's say last 20 years.
decade to 15 years,
Yeah.
100%.
Of Jeepers.
I thought at one time, you had 20-ish, 20 to 30. I could probably only name off about 7 or 8, I'm blown away by the number that you threw out earlier.
68.
And
that's impressive.
That's
There's 68 of them. But it gets better than that. Let's talk about number one. What state has the most of those trails?
Pennsylvania.
No.
Utah.
Utah.
Oh, well,
They have 11.
That should have been a given.
Tied for
Yeah,
second place for
silly.
most trails. Which 2 states?
Pennsylvania.
No.
God,
Michigan.
PA,
No.
I'm desperate. I'm trying to throw you out there. Michigan was a good choice.
Yeah.
California and Colorado.
Oh, that's
that's
fair.
again, fair.
So back to your west of the Mississippi.
yeah,
comment.
west of the Mississippi. We
Now-
just got more land sitting out there.
In third place is
Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Yay! I'm not sponsored by the Great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, folks. I promise.
but they do actually have the next most, and coming in with 5 different trails that you can get Badge of Honors on.
Yes.
After that, most other states that have it are 1 or 2.
It's remarkable, though, to hear that many states, and I wonder what the qualifications to become a Badge of Honor trail is.
Well, I saw some people arguing on the internet where they have a picture of a trail, and there was a line, basically 2 lines this way and 2 lines over this way. And someone was on their soapbox saying, if you've been on this trail and you went to the right, you didn't go on the Badge of Honor trail. You had to go over here and go to the left and
Now,
go to the more
Did
challenging
you
side.
specifically see that when it came to Badge of Honor?
I
Yes.
think it was a Badge of Honor.
I have
yes.
100%. There is, and there's also contention because to get a Badge of Honor, you just have to sign
Show
in
up.
at the trailhead.
Yeah.
GPS will locate you at the trailhead, and
Yeah.
you qualify.
There was somebody calling out posers of a badge of honor.
Get the
trail.
heck out of here. I was actually on a hill climb group recently where the same contention was, and it was a hill, and
Yeah.
it said if you took this line, then
You didn't do the trail.
then you didn't do the hill climb.
Yep.
You did technically the bypass. And meanwhile, I'm looking at the hill climb.
It was
And I'm
serious.
thinking-
I saw that as well.
I'm
it
thinking,
was very
no,
serious.
that looks gnarly as all get out.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that. You
Right.
know, like that's a buggy should be running that just as much as the left.
Yeah.
And then I saw some guy go, what do you say, 12-year-old ran it on a 110 dirt bike or 125, and I thought, oh my gosh,
Well,
I would
on
not let
that
my
one-
12-year-old run that hill.
On that one, they kept talking about like, yeah, I flew off of that one and my dirt bike over there, and I put it in the weeds
I-
over there, and in the tree over there, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you guys doing?
I want to know who their photographer was to show it as gnarly as it is, because a lot of times the trails just look flat.
Well,
on
because it
cameras.
was a cliff, Jeffrey. The
Yeah.
issue was it's a cliff. I could watch a
So-
cliff.
so it wasn't
of
actually a
Ireland.
hill.
It's not a hill. It's a cliffside. And
So
these
anyways-
guys who are running this up it, I don't know, clearly are made of titanium because
so-
they terrify me.
They bounced.
The next question, because now we know there's 68 of the
Yes.
Badge of Honor trails, is I want to know how many badges Joe Brilla has.
Well, he told us. It's on the screen right now.
He's done 14 of them.
He's done 14
I
of
actually
them.
didn't see that
You didn't
comment.
know
I was asking.
Yeah.
So how many
No.
are how many of those badges are on your Jeep though?
I think all 14 are. I mean, that's
I've
what it
actually
looks like
been
to me.
impressed. Jeeps
Now-
that come through.
Well,
How-
Joe Harper, I got to be honest with you. I
Joe
want to know
Harper's-
what Joe Harper's done
Yep.
as well. Some of our active listeners might have done more.
Yeah,
Who's
Chuck
done
had-
the most? You
Chuck
got to let
had a
us know.
bunch Too.
Yeah, Chuck had a bunch coming down. So we have a bunch of dedicated individuals who are
I knew that
Go
was
look.
coming.
who are
Okay,
who are
I-
actively doing. These
How about
things.
how many of them are on your 4xe, Joe?
Oh.
So so we have these activities to encourage these types of conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so being able to, and that is exactly what the branding and marketing from Jeep was meant
Yes.
to do. It was meant to bridge the brand loyalty that encourages people to get out and use these vehicles the way
Yes.
that we had intended to, but to use them in responsible and sustainable ways.
One so far on the 4xe.
There you go.
I
There we
knew
go.
I knew he had
I'm
at least
holding
one
strong
on the
for you,
4xe.
Linda. I'm holding strong for you. You know what? I absolutely love this talking point, and I don't know that we're going to get into the concept of tread lightly sufficiently
I think
enough.
The only part we should say, I think, just as the responsible thing, is if you're out on the trail, I don't care if it's gray, black, green, whatever, and you see garbage, pick it up, take care of it, throw it away. That's leave it better than what you
Yes.
came. And that's how, if you have an area, you're been going for years, and maybe it's gray, or maybe it's not, who knows. If you treat it with respect, you're more likely to be able to use it in the future. Doesn't really matter if it's a park or not in that thing.
Without question.
All-encompassing thing.
Without question. Leave it. I heard Jeffrey start this. Leave it better than
Then
you found it.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
and that is so valuable to to be a golden rule of off-roading, just in general life as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Um,
And Joe's chiming in and saying none of the trails that they run on Arch Canyon Jamboree are Badge of Honor trails.
right, that makes sense. And that's the beauty of JJ USA, providing opportunity to see different properties that the Badge of Honors are. I believe that a number of the trails that Joe has been on are actually Bureau of Land Management regulated, or a number of the trails in Utah are BLM as well. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to talk in the future about tread lightly and responsible off-roading. Maybe as a small extension of this conversation, could be very entertaining, very interesting. With that said, the opportunity to go to off-road parks, the big thing is people often ask, what should I expect? What should I encounter? Right. And ultimately you said, hey, you can find utilities and
It
resources
gets better.
that typically, I know
No,
that
no. 4xEs and electric vehicles are able to charge at a lot of these parks now.
yes.
Yeah. Well, and you can have camping spots and hookups and that kind of stuff for them as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, and
They
are
actually have electric chargers
they have electric
available
charging
at
available.
the
They're
mouths of the
building
park.
up the trailheads to to support this infrastructure.
Yeah.
which is one of the things that makes me proud. I know the whole electric vehicle conversation becomes very divisive for a lot of people. Realistically, I believe Jeep is on the forefront of it, and they're creating. It might not be fully sustainable, but they are creating infrastructure to benefit our industry and help build it
It's
to
a
get
lot-
people out on the trails.
I mean, all you have to do is, a lot of people haven't had this opportunity, but we've been into it back before a TJ was available. So we know what it was like in the dark days of wheeling and jeeping, that you had to build parts and you kind of had to go gray wheeling or you didn't go at all.
Sure, we didn't have the parts that we have now.
And Jeep honestly didn't care a whole lot about what you were doing. A very small demographic in Jeep did, but they were the minority, not the company itself.
The
Sure.
Teamsters.
And now the fact that you can go and buy a Rubicon and have the outfitted the way it is right from the get-go, and you have all these opportunities, it's really amazing to being in this long to see the changes that we've seen again in our lifetimes. It's a great time to be wheeling. It's a great time to own a Jeep and to be able to go out and use it.
Sure. So I'm asking you guys, what should our people who are listening to us, who are just getting into it, what should they expect when they go to a prescribed off-road park?
A community of support.
Community of support, tools and resources,
Yep.
utilities, which is what
Yes.
I was saying before. Typically there are reasonably marked trails.
Yep.
And if they are not marked, there's typically guides that you can either pay for services that will help you get out into the trails, or there's somebody who will be there that you can join their group and wheel with them.
And it's important to note, most of them you are going to pay a fee to enter the park.
Yep.
So have cash available to pay that fee.
Usually a waiver you sign
usually a
to absolve the park of any responsibility,
and
damage to your vehicle or your person.
Most of the parks, you can sign the waiver in advance of actually going.
Yes.
That's a good piece of
And
advice.
do your research on that. If they require you to do that before you arrive, do that.
Yeah.
And then most of my experience is it's good for a year. So I usually just go on in the beginning of the year, right after New Year's, do all my waivers for my whole family, and then I'm just covered. I don't have to worry about it again until the next New Year.
Yep.
So
I usually wait till I plan my first wheeling trip, and then I go on and sign the waiver for that place.
yeah.
I personally, if we get a little off of the off-road parks to some of your national and state lands, for me, I've done a lot of coastal wheeling, and there are permits. Certainly in Ohio, if you're going to access some of the OHV, or even in Michigan, there are permits that at the state that you need, state or county level, that you might need to familiarize yourself. So the concept of these off-road parks, making sure that you fill out the waiver. The equivalent at the state and county level is going to be their permitting process. Make sure that you then display whether it's a sticker or a flag or your permit appropriately within your vehicle while you're responsibly off-roading.
And most of these places are going to have rules, so familiarize yourself with the rules
Absolutely.
in advance and follow them.
Yep. And honestly, a lot of the rules of the trail are not all that different than the rules of the road.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit more slow going, a little bit more of a rougher terrain, but still expect to wear your seatbelt. You're not supposed to be drinking while driving.
Yep.
Don't be a trail hog and block the trail. If you know that something is failing on your rig, don't take it out. If you know that your tire is about to throw a belt, don't drive it down the highway. Don't expect to take it to the off-road park and use it.
Yeah.
There are some common sense pieces that are to be applied to the off-road experience as well, but just because you're at an off-road park doesn't mean that you've got carte blanche to go out there and rip up somebody else's property and abuse the situation.
There's still a level of respect required.
It absolutely
100%.
is, and so expect to be a steward of of the off-road experience, and again, leave it better than you found it. So if you're a person who's interested in getting out there and off-roading, I strongly encourage you to reach out to those parks, maybe join a local Jeep club, get involved with JJUSA or one of the maybe a local event or show that offers some wheeling in your area.
And many of those parks even offer like the 101 courses and stuff to teach you how to go off road.
And most of them have a Facebook page or something like that where you can go on easily, find out their fees, what's required, what they expect of you to go, that kind of stuff. So you can really do your research and go in already knowing what they are going to have or not have.
And if you're going by yourself, you can go into those areas, those pages, and say, hey, I'm coming down. Is there anyone available I can ride with?
And I guarantee you
a million people are going to jump on that.
People are going to help you.
The last piece, tongue-in-cheek, is if you are planning to go, plan to go and be resolute in it. The biggest joke, and if this is new to you, if somebody plans a trip, 30 people are going to say they're going.
Yes.
10 people a week ahead of time will actually be making plans.
Yes.
And 3 people will show up the day of.
Yes.
Right? So as we continue this, as you continue to grow into it as an industry, we make these opportunities available to people. Choose wisely what you invest your time and energy in. If you don't think you're actually going to be able to sustain the commitment, maybe don't get in on somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
Equally, if, the opportunity presents itself and you're like, I think I can make this happen, then I encourage you, do your best to put it out into the universe, to make sure that your vehicle is, reliable enough to engage in the endeavor, and then have at it. Get intimate with your vehicle the way Scott likes to, and learn how it bumps and creaks and squeaks on the trail, and how to use it effectively as an extension of you, the driver.
And
There's been a bunch of comments.
Brian was saying he's done 7 in Utah that were mostly done on his first wheeling trip, and then from there he hasn't gone back out there. But so that's a pretty cool comment though, Brian. And
I know that Joe had mentioned previously some concerns about Joe O'Brien, previously mentioned to us. And so I figured we close out the program, read through some of the basic comments, mention some of our people who've jumped in on the program.
Joe mentioned about some of the bad things happening in Wellsville, to tow rigs or vehicles broken down on the trails while going to get help.
And I wanted to mention to a lot of people who are in a geographical area to the Great Lakes, understand that we have some of the nation's most well-known parks within about an 8-hour experience of the Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Columbus area. About 8 hours, you can get to some of the nation's top East Coast wheeling, which is a whole debate online. Windrock is arguably the country's largest private off-road park. I understand. Somebody might fact check me, but that's right in Kentucky. Then you have Roush and Anthracite, and you have Southington Off-Road, which was formerly known as a different business entity. That actually was in national headlines for years as a main stop back before off-road parks were as prevalent as they currently are. That property has been being wheeled longer than quite a few others. The thing about Wellsville is actually, it's funny, it actually has some national acclaim because the area here in eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, Wellsville was this unique topography that had all these very technical, challenging trails, and it was in the hotbed of quite a few off-road clubs. And so people had been going to Wellsville for years as gray wheeling. There was basically kind of an unspoken acceptance. And I've gray wheeled many places in the country, and there was just a time where it was just flat out okay. You know, you heard the Jeep coming through the woods at 11 o'clock at night. It was just like, hey, cool, they're out having fun, they're being respectful, and they're just motoring along. Then seemingly, whether we were just more exposed to it or just more knowledgeable of it, there just seemed to be more abuse on the trails. I can't explain why that is the case or isn't.
But I agree with you.
And then people started taking their red ball and leaving the chat, right?
Yes.
And they started to shut down properties left and right. Wellsville is one of them. It was subdivided. So-and-so bought off this piece. There was this piece over here. And
it changed
drastically. In that period of time, there were nefarious things happening. And I think we have to just admit that and just be like, it was kind of a sketch situation.
Yeah, very much so.
If you were an outsider coming in. There were locals. There were nefarious individuals doing things
not good things.
Not good things.
Oh yeah, and then
And-
you'd see people going, "Hey, is there somewhere I can go wheel?" And they're like, "Wellsville." I'm like, "Yeah, nope."
I think that at this point in time, largely there's many people who are wheeling Wellsville regularly. They're okay to. It's almost like a little bit of the Scooby-Doo scenario. They're okay with that still being the idea because it keeps less people off on the trails, right?
Yeah.
They're okay with going, hey, yeah, there's the boogeyman still here. What I understand is that largely that area has cleaned itself up. There's been a lot of peer review going, hey, peer policing is that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
People going, hey, you know what? We're not going to tolerate the shenanigans here. We're still going to be able to maintain this trail. We're going to clean up. We're going to do stuff. And so I don't think that Wellsville is as much of a air quotes bad place as it was 15 years ago.
But you're still gray.
But you're still gray.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of technically challenging things that you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you
very
don't
much
go with somebody who knows the property.
Yeah.
So be careful with that.
Also in the comments, real fast, Brian said he's hitting Windrock in May. Can't wait. So that's
Hey,
pretty
have
exciting.
a good one, Brian. Yep.
And then Matt has a really good question.
I think we end on Matt's question
Yeah.
here.
Do we have any legal and responsible one-tank trips, or maybe two-tank, in Northeast Ohio to get off the pavement more than once a month?
And I've heard the more than once a month thing quite a bit, and they're usually,
But-
shots at Southington being
who's once a
shot
month.
most
And not
of
in
the
a
time.
negative way,
Not-
but
no,
that's we only
Yeah,
get them
but-
once a month.
and that's why we brought up about that they have other things that they're using the property for, and it's important to note that is someone's personal property that allows us to use it.
Yep.
Well-
kind of as we see fit almost. So we really have to be respectful of that and be thankful for that.
And with that said, the objective ish is the fact that Southington is once a month. Shout out to Steve Stiller at Stiller Motorsports down outside of Templeton, PA, with the BFR, which is the Ben Franklin Range, which is what I did on New Year's Eve. If you caught that YouTube video, what I understand, they've got I think they have a 12-month schedule. So that's kind of in my opinion, that might be the first time in a long time where they have 12 months, one time a month, open to off-roading. There is a park that has attempted to establish here, local to us, more of a mud opportunity. I think that's the challenge with full-size to ATV to side-by-side, is the idea that typically most Jeep people kind of want slow and steady, right? Little tight technical trails, East Coast wheeling. So my recommendation, especially for somebody who's looking for what I would call entry-level adventure, meaning what would typically be referred to as what a green trail, blue trail, more or less your entry to mild. In Northeast Ohio, Northwestern Pennsylvania, you do have the Allegheny National Forest, which on good accord, we have talked, I have personally talked with the rangers in that area. If the trailhead, that is clearly a vehicle allowed, it's not marked, no vehicles allowed, is unlocked and open, that trail is accessible.
Yep.
You may find yourself nose to nose, as far as your vehicle is concerned, with somebody who's working in the oil, gas, fracking, land management, resources field, and you'll have to explain yourself to them. But otherwise, you are, by national standards, allowed to use that property arguably 365 days a year. So I always encourage people who are, hey, I only get Thursdays off, or I get Wednesdays and Thursdays off. Allegheny National Forest is a space that you can go and explore. Now, harken back to some of our other podcasts, Prepare to Self-Rescue.
Mm-hmm.
You're not with JJUSA. You're not with a prescribed wheeling group. So familiarize yourself. This is where maybe the apps that we had mentioned before may be of benefit to you in that process, that you're going alone. We definitely recommend, recovery equipment and, planning for the worst, if you will.
Yep. Some spare parts, some
But
tools.
that's a property or a space that's within, a few hours drive, that many people, I certainly grew up not appreciating that property. I kind of didn't even know it existed.
Mhm.
Scott knew it because he had been attending the Best Damn Car Show, which is
That's run by a damn site.
yeah, best run by a dam site.
It's
Is that what-
actually at
DAM,
a
right?
dam
The
site.
Kinzu Dam, which is in Allegheny National Forest,
Yeah.
part of the Allegheny River system. And but a beautiful property that many people, especially people who are into the outdoors, do not take full advantage of.
Yep.
I'd really like to take credit that as good stewards of the space, we have encouraged a lot of our customers to go off over there
Well, and-
because of that very reason of 365. You can go play in the outdoors and
And if you like off-road or just the trails in general, going onto those trails, you can park and go wander into the woods and really see some cool sights. Some of the waterfalls in that area,
Mhm.
the rock fixtures. There's just a lot to see and explore. So it's a great
100%.
opportunity.
It's a little less hardcore. You can kind of get your toes wet and
Yep.
kind of experience it a little bit.
But you can hike it while you're there.
Yep. So that is my best recommendation for individuals who are looking for something more than just once a month or the prescribed weekends. Other than that, we are traveling to Michigan, to Kentucky,
So
or
I wrote
Central
down
Eastern
4
Pennsylvania.
just to kind of go over. So we obviously mentioned Southington Off-Road. They're in Garrettsville, Ohio. We have Bundy Hill Off-Road. That's in Jerome, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
We have Rosh Creek, which is in Pine Grove, PA. And we have Holly Oaks Overhead, or OHV, which is also in Holly, Michigan.
Michigan.
Yep.
And I have not made it to Holly Oaks, but that is one that is on my sooner
On
than
our
later
list.
Yep.
for other reasons. But there's definitely some ones that are in the area that are easily accessible. I hope that you found this conversation beneficial, folks, and that you see the value and appreciate these off-road parks and what these individuals are doing in leadership at those parks. If you're in a vicinity, I can't of any off-road park. I don't care where it is, coast to coast. I encourage you to get involved. They need volunteers. Organize a cleanup, or organize call them and ask them, how can we be part of trail management? How can we
Yeah.
assist you in continuing to offer
Take an
these
interest.
services?
Make it better.
Yeah, to make it better and ensure that when you're traveling here to east of the Mississippi, that you've got a cool property to come to. So our promise to you is we're gonna be good stewards of these properties here. We ask that you be good property stewards out where you are, so that when we travel into your local neck of the woods, that we get the same cool experience that you're used to as well.
100%.
This is a big community piece. That's really the value of the Badge of Honors trails, JJUSA, the different 101 classes and whatnot. It's to further the community experience that comes from enjoying the 4x4 and outdoor nature of the brand that we all love. So, folks, it was a great time talking with you. We've got a lot of Jeeps to build, things to do. Make sure you check out our YouTube video this week, the live on Facebook coming up in a day or so. You can check out this podcast by Friday, Wednesday.
The American Hustle's Friday.
American Hustle drops Friday, and you can get any of those cataloged on the ice. You can get these podcasts cataloged on the I Speak Jeep YouTube channel by Friday as well.
Joe says go fix his Jeep.
Oh, buddy, I wish. Until then, Jeep family, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.